This first video we got here, Jimmy High Roller. What did I just witness? ... I be liking videos before I watch them, bro. When you really fuck with a content creator, you finna do that. You know what I'm saying? Dang.
A few days ago during the Pacers-Knicks matchup, I saw something that I have never seen before, and it completely blew my mind.
What was it?
Nice bounce pass. Jackson fouled.
Oh, Lord.
And we've got a pigeon as the ball is stuck back. Oh, Toppin.
Oh, come on.
I don't know if we got a replay. Toppin just incredible hops. Running that loud.
Wait, what? Did he just grab it?
Over slam. Toppin.
Yo.
Did y'all just see that? It happened quick, and if you weren't paying close attention during this broadcast, you could have easily missed it. But Obi Toppin just casually dislodged the ball at the top of the backboard. After the game, I had to go and find this clip and rewatch it a few times to make sure I wasn't tripping. And sure enough, I was not. Obi Toppin just touched the top of the backboard. Not that long ago, a feat like this was stuff of legend. We used to hear stories about crazy athletic players from the past being able to pull this off, but there was never any video evidence or proof, so we just had to take their word for it, regardless of how unbelievable it sounded. And it always sounded unbelievable. Something that used to be claimed as a feat of superhuman athleticism, and Obi Toppin just jogged up and did it like it was nothing. And almost as crazy as the jump itself is the fact that no one even batted an eye. It didn't really get much of a reaction. No one talked about it after.
No, look at Cat, look at Cat, look at Cat, look at Cat.
And Obi Toppin just jogged up and did it like it was nothing. And almost as crazy as the jump itself is the fact that no one even batted an eye.
No, that's
didn't really get much of a reaction. No one talked about it after. Hardly anyone even made note of it. It kind of just came and went. I guess this is just normal now, which got me thinking. Are NBA players today better athletes now than ever before? It's obvious by now that the skill level around the league is at an all-time high. There's no debate there. But are NBA players more athletic than players of the past? Can they actually jump higher and run faster than players that came before them? That seems to be the general consensus right now, and it's definitely what my eyes are seeing. But according to the data, this may not be the case.
Interesting.
Today's video is sponsored by DraftKings. Football season is here. Customers bet.
I'm eating. I slipped up. I'm eating.
With time, inevitably comes evolution. You see it everywhere you look. However, the one area in life where this has been up for debate is the NBA. Fans of past eras claiming the league has regressed and is somehow now in a worse state than it was decades ago. But after some lighthearted and completely rational and level-headed discussions, it seems most fans generally agree that the league is in fact better now than it was in the past. Shooting is better, scoring is more efficient, players are more skilled. But does this same logic apply to the actual physical abilities of players? Are today's NBA players better athletes than their predecessors? Well, according to the comment section of any past player's highlight reel, they sure are, claims that today's players are not just more skilled, but they are far superior athletes. And as biased and nearsighted as this may sound, when watching these games today, it's becoming hard to deny. While watching this year's preseason, it felt like what was once a jaw-dropping feat of to deny. While watching this year's preseason, it felt like what was once a jaw-dropping feat of athleticism has now become a fairly regular occurrence. Like, what is this? Christian Braun, a player who is not even regarded as a high flyer, taking off in traffic, head at the rim, gets stuffed by Hartenstein, and they're back off to the races like nothing even happened. Here's a play by Brandon Miller, a skill guy. Why is he catching a body like prime Blake Griffin? Zach Edey is 7'4", 300 pounds, and the man is catching lobs like he's an athletic stretch 4. This is the same guy who, coming into the draft, was described as a plotter, slow, unathletic. This guy, whose strengths were noted as everything but his athleticism, who's catching the ball from the stratosphere. 7'5" alien leaning into a double pump? What am I watching? This block by Malik Monk? This is insane. What am I watching? This block by Malik Monk? This is insane. Somewhere there's a career defensive mixtape of Michael Jordan doing the same exact block. Nowadays, this is just another Tuesday in the NBA. None of these plays from a week's worth of preseason games will make anyone's career highlight tape. They're not really noteworthy in today's game. In fact, despite their incredible physical tools, some of these players aren't even on an NBA team at the moment. So are NBA players today athletically superior to players of the past? According to years worth of data across not just basketball, but many sports, the answer time and time again is no. Anatomical and physical evolution takes far longer than just a few decades. Most measurable metrics suggest that there's little to no improvement on athleticism of athletes today versus athletes 20 or 30 years ago. And most of what little improvement has been made can usually be attributed to better training, better nutrition, and better equipment. But when it comes to the NBA specifically, what exactly does the data say? And how much athletic progression has there been over the last 20 or 30 years, if any at all? Here is a graph of the average vertical leap of every NBA draftee since 2000. Unfortunately, there isn't any publicly available data on draft classes before 2000, but still, this is a quarter century worth of data. And throughout the last 25 years and nearly 1,500 players, there has been a slight increase in leaping ability of players around the league. In 25 years, the average vertical leap in the NBA has increased by about 3 inches, or about 8% higher than it was 25 years ago, which isn't much, but it is notable considering the sample size. However, 3 inches of leaping ability does not explain the elevation in gameplay and acrobatics that we see in the NBA today compared to where it was nearly 3 decades ago. In fact, an 8% increase around the league could be attributed to simply the optimization of athletics rather than the athletes themselves. As previously mentioned, equipment, training, and nutrition. What is interesting though is that 25 years ago there was a distinct separation in explosiveness from position to position. Different skill sets for different roles on the court. But in recent years, the test results across all positions have converged. Perimeter players on average indistinguishable from one another, and big men just slightly behind. One side effect of a positionless league is the merging of skills regardless of size. But inadvertently, this has also caused the merging of actual physical abilities regardless of size and alleged position. The NBA Combine also conducts an agility drill, where players are tested on their lateral quickness and mobility. How fast can you cover space while cutting and changing direction? And in this metric, players have also gotten slightly more athletic over the last 25 years. And when I say slightly, I mean by just 3%, or 0.3 seconds better since 2000. An average that has gotten consistently better over the years, but by a negligible amount. Not nearly enough of a discrepancy to make...
If 60 people were drafted each year, this is 25 draft classes. That is insane. That's an insane amount of research, bro. What's that? 60, about 2,200, about 300, 1.5 thousand people. Crazy.
Any conclusions about better athletes in the NBA today than even 25 years ago? The Combine's sprint drill is as simple as it sounds. Sprint 3/4 of the court as fast as you can. And in this test, NBA players have, again, not really changed at all since 2000. No measurable progress in flat-out speed across the NBA over the last 25 years, which means across 3 different tests of athletic ability conducted by over 1,000 NBA players over the course of nearly 3 decades, the NBA is somewhere between 3 to 8% more athletic than it previously was, which is a long shot from the claims of superior athleticism. But possibly the most definitive answer to this question comes from a company that specializes in this exact field. In 2023, Ross Anderson of The Atlantic wrote a piece exploring the idea of athleticism in the NBA and if the data backs up what our eyes are seeing, that players today are better athletes than players of the past. And within his investigation, he got in touch with P3, a company that specializes in optimizing the performance of athletes. At P3, they use state-of-the-art technology to gather real-time data on athletes and then conduct an analysis to find areas in which they can improve athletically. And in the process, they have amassed some of the most comprehensive data sets on these athletes and their physical capabilities, such as raw force production, power, and overall movement and speed. Now, according to P3, 2/3 of NBA players who suited up last season have worked out at their facility, which gives P3 incredibly detailed data on the majority of players around the league. And according to the data, today's average NBA athlete is 4 to 7% better than the average NBA athlete from more than 10 years ago, which lines up with the data that we gathered from the NBA Combine. And it gives us great evidence that NBA players today, even if it isn't much, are better athletes than the players of the past. But Marcus Elliott, founder and director of P3, says this progress is a matter of performance optimization, not necessarily an evolution of the athletes themselves, stating that when he began evaluating players about 15 years ago, many were operating at only 75 to 80% of their potential athleticism, whereas today players are operating at closer to 90% of their potential. But the extra 5 to 10% boost in athleticism over the course of a couple decades,
I'm not gonna lie. Mega. I need a napkin and a bag. I won't even lie to y'all. I need a napkin and a bag. Like my shit. I got curry, pumpkin, cabbage, bro. I got everything on my hand right now, bro. This is insane. Hold on. Bitch, I'm attractive. Can't fool you no more. I'm fasting. Ooh, bitch, I'm attractive.
doesn't explain what we're actually seeing on the court and how it appears like players of today are far superior athletes than players of yesterday. So if NBA players have statistically only gotten marginally more explosive and agile over the last few decades, and all of the data says there isn't much evidence to prove otherwise, how do we explain the leap in physical abilities from today's players that we are actually seeing? Well, in order to answer this question, we need to redefine how we perceive and measure athleticism. Despite the years that have passed, Michael Jordan and the way he played remains an outlier in the timeline of basketball. Where many players of the past have a game that aesthetically isn't so favorable through the lens of 2024, Michael's acrobatics are to this day a spectacle. And that is a perk exclusive to a man that was arguably the best athlete in the history of the league. But have you ever seen MJ attempt an East Bay? Well, it's kind of weird. This footage is from 1989, during Michael's athletic peak. He's got hands the size of baseball mitts, 6 feet 6 inches tall. His vert is well over 40 inches, and yet he struggled to throw down a dunk that has become fairly routine in the NBA today. But Michael had all of the physical tools to easily pull off an East Bay. And I have absolutely no doubt that he could. After all, this is just one missed attempt. But this clip demonstrates that maybe it's not the athleticism that has gotten better over the years, but rather the way players use their athleticism. This is Orlando Woolridge, and he was the first player to pull off an East Bay in the NBA dunk contest back in 1984. Of course, this dunk existed in East Bay in the NBA dunk contest back in 1984. Of course, this dunk existed before 1984, but it wasn't something players would regularly attempt, let alone pull off, even for the league's highest flyers. But over time, the dunk became more popular, almost like a measuring stick of elite jumping ability. Fast forward 15 years, and a simple East Bay would get you tens across the board in the NBA dunk contest in the late 90s and early 2000s. But today, this dunk hardly even turns heads. Players are doing this in games. High school players who aren't nearly as explosive as a prime MJ are doing this dunk. Not because they are jumping higher or are more agile than their predecessors, but because players today have been taught and trained on how to maximize, optimize, and use their physical tools to a far greater extent than players of the past. Oftentimes, players of the past possessed all of the explosiveness and agility to pull off what we see in the league today. They just didn't know how to use it, at least not like today's athletes do. And according to countless studies regarding this topic, this is the prevailing theory: utilization and optimization of pre-existing physical abilities. The highlights and jaw-dropping feats of athleticism that we see far more often from players today aren't a result of them being more athletic, but rather having the skills and abilities to do more with their athleticism. The extra 5
Makes
to 10% of measurable improvement of athletic ability may explain some of this, but the evolution of specialized training and skill is the driving force here. A player in the 90s may have had all the physical tools to slice up a defense, cut through the lane, and put together a clip for their highlight reel, but without the skills to keep the ball in front of them along the way, those physical tools are essentially watered down to a slower, less explosive alternative. Rising above a defender for a poster is a feat of athleticism, but so is the combo a player put together to break their defender and get to the rim in the first place. Without the skills to initiate the highlight, there is no highlight. And as the skill level around the league has jumped dramatically over time, so have all of the displays of athletic ability. Big men of the past may have had the vertical leap to go and catch a lob 12 feet in the air, but without the body control, play style, or constant high pick and roll action that we see today, they never really get the opportunity to put this athleticism on display. For example, Giannis Antetokounmpo is a freak of nature, and we know this because every other possession he comes barreling down the lane and shows off his incredible speed, vert, and strength. His athleticism is always on full display. But if Giannis played back in 1995, how likely is it that he gets relegated to the low post, restricted to hook shots and having his back to the basket on most possessions? If he isn't granted the opportunity to learn how to handle the ball and be a scoring threat from outside and float around the perimeter, how often would he get a full head of steam to attack the basket and show off his physical tools?
That's a good point.
Similar to Giannis, David Robinson was a freak of nature. But outside of the occasional fast break or lob to the rim, there wasn't nearly as many opportunities for fans to witness the full extent of his freakish abilities. Even play style itself can play a deceptive role on how we view athleticism of certain players. In the 2008 NBA Combine, Russell Westbrook recorded a max vertical leap of 36.5 inches. Not nearly as high as you would expect from seemingly one of the most explosive athletes in NBA.
That's a fact. This nigga is so explosive, bro. Like, the way he leaps is crazy. You would think he's like in the 40s with like the highest of the highs, but
history. 10 years later, Grayson Allen, a far cry from what you would consider to be an elite jumper, recorded a max vert of 40.5 inches. In fact, Grayson Allen tested better than Westbrook in every single drill in the Combine.
Crazy.
And even knowing this, there isn't a soul on earth who would say he is a better athlete than Westbrook was. Because while Westbrook was playing above the rim, Grayson Allen was taking spot-up threes. If I were to ask you who was the most explosive athlete between Stephen Curry and Blake Griffin, the answer would be painfully obvious. Except most fans would get it wrong. Because in the 2009 Combine, their results were virtually identical. Blake was actually more agile than Steph in the agility drill, and Steph somehow clocked the same max vert as Blake did. Athleticism and how we as fans identify it can be a very...
The thing is, Steph's vert is 1 inch shorter than Westbrook's. It does not feel like that, gang. Like, even with Blake Griffin, it does not feel like that's one. It does not feel like Steph is the same vertical as Blake Griffin, bro.
Misleading thing. It all depends on how and where you use it. When a player in the NBA makes a crazy layup, this is often a result of skill opening the door for athleticism, not the other way around. Knowing how to utilize the angles, how to attack a defender, how to move your body and get the best look at a shot. These are all skills that have been developed, skills that are far beyond the average player of the past, and skills that allow players to actually use their athleticism to their full potential. And when we watch this, it appears to be more athletic than what we saw in the past, because it is. But not in any quantifiable way that can be measured through a vert test or an agility drill. Without the ball in their hands, NBA players today are almost indiscernible from players of 25 years ago. There's almost no measurable difference between them. But give them the ball, some space, and a playstyle that emphasizes their abilities, and very quickly, the gap between what they are able to pull off on the court becomes clear as day. But this isn't to discount players of the past. There were countless players who would be top-tier athletes in any generation, and the ones who had the skills to complement their athleticism prove that the NBA has always been loaded with great athletes. However, the number of players who were able to reach their full athletic potential without the training, technology, equipment, and knowledge that players of today have was far less, leading to a league that appeared to be far less athletic than it is today. Are NBA players today better athletes than players of the past? Well, technically, yeah, but not in the way that we have been led to believe. NBA players haven't evolved athletically. They don't jump much higher or run much faster than the players that came before them. But with the benefit of decades of advancements in how we measure, train, and improve athletes, today's NBA players have optimized their athleticism far more than players of the past. They understand their bodies and abilities more, and they have been meticulously trained to know exactly how to get the most out of them. The extra 5 to 10% of measurable increase in athletic performance may have something to do with the incredible plays we are now spoiled with, but many of these athletic feats,
You know, this whole video happened because Obi Toppin hit the ball out the top, which is still fucking crazy to think he did that, bro.
can be attributed to a developed skill and coiled with. But many of these athletic feats can be attributed to a developed skill and complementary play style that is much more difficult to measure. Athletically, over time, NBA players haven't changed much at all. But how they use their athleticism, that is the evolution.
That's interesting.